Right, good morning everyone. My name is Dan. I'm back for another GCSE Key Stage 3 lesson. I have slightly less hair than before. My 6-year-old shaved it for me as a bid to raise some money for the NHS as well. So here we go with a ratio lesson. So this is really important all the way up to GCSE, and it's one of those topics that I've had so many people say to me, so many children I've taught, oh, I just can't do ratio. I've never been able to do ratio. It's too hard. And you want to look at it a different way, okay, using a kind of bar method that you might have looked at in primary school with fractions. It works with ratio as well. It works for everything. That's why it's such a good thing to use. And it's not just for primary school. I teach this all the way up to GCSE for the really difficult questions because it helps you understand what's going on. Okay, right, we're going to start as always with a few mixed questions. You might not be able to do all of these depending what year you're in, but have a go at those 5 different questions in your books, on your whiteboards, whatever you've got to start with, and we'll go through those in a bit, and then we'll start on the ratio bit. Okay, so if you can't do one, skip it, we'll come back to it. Just think about the ones you can do from that list. Okay. Okay, if you just turn up, we're just doing these questions here. Have a go at those, thinking about the ones you can do, and then we are going to look at the ratio stuff. Okay, it's important to come back and just regularly do different types of questions that you've done before, just because we forget things if we don't do them regularly. So I think always start with a mix of questions. If you're doing some maths, do a few different things first before you do the main thing you are going to be teaching or revising. If you've got any questions as well about any of this, please get me on the chat and I will try and help out once I've loaded up the iPad. Hello Daniel again as well, good to have you. Looks like by a little picture you might be a rugby player as well. Me too.
He has to make the Pokemon. He has to make it.
Oh, that's a good plan. I like that bit. That's a very good idea. Okay, excellent. Good idea. I love it. I wonder which one it's going to be.
Well, and some people have done those already, I'll just give it a little bit more time. Yes, that is supposed to be Cara, sorry, yes. That is supposed to be Ben and Cara. I'll just change that there. That's not a trick question, sorry. Don't like watching on TV too much, but if we need to. No, don't give me a clue yet. Right, okay, let's go through this so we can get on with the main bit of the lesson. Simplifying fractions. It's always worth trying to do this. If you go to a GCSE exam, even if you don't need to do it, you're not going to lose a mark for trying, even if you get it wrong. But it's good to simplify. The only exception is probability, which we might come to in a different lesson. But otherwise it's nearly always best to simplify them. So all you're looking for is using an equivalent fraction to get the same on the bottom, divide by the same number on the top and the bottom. So you're looking for a factor of 16 and a factor of 20. Nothing wrong with doing it in stages. So you might have thought, well, I can half that and half that because they're both even, or 2's a factor. So I might go to 8 out of 10, and then I can do the same again to go to 4/5. You might have divided by 4 straight away. Brilliant. Doesn't matter as long as you get there. 8 times 0.2. This is a big one for me, multiplying by decimals. So, I know that 8 times 2 equals 16. So 8 times 0.2 is going to be 10 times smaller than that. So you're going to have to divide it by 10. 16 divided by 10 is 1.6. If you're unsure about dividing and times by 10, we're doing a lesson on that on Friday's Key Stage 2 lesson. Anyway, so another way to check, if you look at your question there, you can see there's one number after the decimal point. There's still one digit after the decimal point there. That's a really good way to check you've got the right place value in your answer. Okay, question 3. What's the difference between the radius and the diameter of a circle? If I drew a circle here, the radius is that line. The diameter of the same circle would be all the way across. So you need to know the difference between those two, and you should say that the diameter is double the radius as well. The diameter is double the radius in a circle. It's so easy to get those words mixed up though. Radius, halfway, diameter, all the way across. Okay, question 4. So we've got a 25%, 75% question here. So Ben gets 25%. So if you've got £24, okay, divide 25% of that, that is a quarter of it. Or if you like, split into 4s. If that's £24 altogether, we're going to split into 25%, so we divide by 4, which gives us 6 in each one. And then you can see Ben gets 25%, so Ben gets this amount there, and Cara gets all of those, which equals £18. So, as long as you get there, I don't mind. The bar method, if there's one time you're not going to use a bar, it's maybe for percentages, as long as you know how to find 25% and read the question carefully. It doesn't say how much does Ben get, it says how much does Cara get. And the last one, solving an equation, lots of different ways to do this. The important thing is that you are working backwards. So if you've got 6x plus 7 equals 37, you need to be doing reverse steps. So I would say, if you're doing this kind of method, I'm going to take away the 7, and then I'm going to divide by the 6. Those are my 2 steps. So 37 take away 7 is 30, and then I'm going to divide that by 6. It gives me 5, x equals 5. I do not mind how you are setting that out, even if you're doing that in your head. as long as you are taking away 7 and dividing by 6. If you are balancing on both sides, fantastic, that's really good for the harder ones as well, but just make sure you're not guessing what x is. We're going to be doing some algebra in future lessons as well. If you've not done that before, then we will be looking at that next lesson, bits of algebra, and something next week maybe as well. Okay, so those are your 5 questions. I hope you got those correct, or the ones you knew you could do correct anyway. As I said, you might not all have covered that yet. So we're going to look now at ratio. Well done, people getting 5 out of 5 there, fantastic. Another 5 out of 5 as well. Okay, brilliant, brilliant work. Okay, right. So, ratio. I'm going to be using Anita and Ben in this for A and B for most of the ratio question, and we're going to look at some kind of worded ones later, but we're just going to start with the basics. So Anita and Ben share out some sweets. Out in the ratio of 2 to 1. Okay, ratio is all about sharing things out to start with. So this says here, this is always the first person and this is always the second person. So Anita gets 2 parts and Ben gets 1 part. Okay, think of this as boxes of sweets. So Anita gets 2 boxes and Ben gets 1 box, and each box needs to be equally filled with sweets. So I would always, and I do this, don't think it's a kiddie way of doing it or anything like that, it's the best way to explain what you are doing. I always do it using some sort of bars. Okay, so if I was doing this, I would start the question by saying A is there for Anita and B for Ben. Anita gets 2 boxes and Ben gets 1 box. So looking at that straight away, Anita gets twice as many sweets as Ben gets. Okay, so that's the first thing you set up. Before you look at anything else on the question, draw out your ratio and label things as boxes, as bars. Alright, so the next stage, so I've done that there with the 2 bars on. You then might be given some more information about it. So the next bit of information is there are 12 sweets altogether. Now this bit's really important. If you rush into a ratio question, if you don't use these bars, you'll get some questions right, you'll get some wrong. You need to make sure you are labelling this on really well. So there are 12 sweets altogether. So this 12 is going to go for all of the boxes there. That's my 12 sweets. That is 12 for all of them. It won't always be there. And this is the biggest problem with ratio questions. You always get taught this type of question, and then you always do that. But it depends on the wording. So we are going to look at all the different types together. I really want to mix them up so you are using these bars properly. So once you got to this stage, I would then work out some more stuff. If you know there's 12 altogether for this 1, 2, 3 boxes, how are you going to work out how many sweets goes in each box that we're sharing out? Okay? So we've got to divide it by 3, haven't we? Because there's 3 boxes there, so we've got to share this out between 3 people, 3 boxes. 3 into 12 goes 4, so there are 4 in each box. And that is your key diagram. Once you have got to this stage, you can answer any question you want. And there normally is a question. So the question here says, so the question might say, how much does Anita get? So Anita, in this case, gets 8 sweets. Or it might say, how many sweets does Ben get? Ben gets 4 sweets. It might say, how many more sweets does Anita get than Ben? It could say anything, but it's all from this diagram. I'm going to show you one more diagram, one more question like this, and then we're going to have a go at some. So this next one looks identical to start with. Okay, so Anita and Ben share some sweets in the ratio of 2 to 1. Same question. This time Anita gets 10 sweets. Now the mistake here will be to do the same thing and put 10 there. That is wrong. You don't want to do that in this question because you're not reading it properly. It says Anita gets 10 sweets. So the 10 this time is going to go on those two boxes. Those are Anita's sweets, so it's 10 for those two. Then work out the size of one box. Well, I know that 2 boxes equals 10, so 1 box has to equal 5. And then I'm in the same situation again. The question might say, how many sweets does Ben get? 5. How many sweets do they all get together? 5, 10, 15. So it's about setting up your diagram to start with, and then the questions are really easy. The hard bit is drawing your boxes. So don't think that's something you just do in primary school. This is a really powerful way of understanding how ratio works. And you'll notice, when I'm explaining these, I haven't mentioned ratio once. So if you think you can't do ratio, just think of it as sharing out things between boxes. Okay, it really is that easy. And then your reading needs to be good because you've got to understand what these questions are saying. Right, now I'm hoping that's a really simple way for some of you. Doing ratio before, please try this out. If you think you can do it the other way, we'll see what happens with these next questions. But this for me is such a simple way of doing ratio. It really is. And I wish that some secondary high schools do keep teaching like this. Some don't. For me, this is a way to do it because it works with really difficult questions. Okay, so if you had any problems with that, we'll see now. So I want you to try this question here, please. So draw your bars, draw your boxes and fill them in. I'm not telling you what the question is. I'm going to do that in a bit once you've drawn some bars. Okay, so let's have a go at that. Okay, hopefully, if you don't understand something as well, please get lots of thumbs up. I'm assuming you understand that. If you don't understand it, please put your, let me know on the comments there. But for now, I want you to draw the diagram for this one. So you've got A and B, draw your boxes, and then fill in the information you've got. Then I'll give you the question. Okay, you'll see how easy it is once you've got the right boxes. Yep, there we go, okay? Let's have a look. How's our escape going? We've got our dog back here. I miss that dog. So I keep disappearing. I've got my 6-year-old doing some creative writing in the kitchen. Okay, right, let's have a look at your diagrams. You've got them. So hopefully you've got something like this. 2 bars for Anita, 3 bars for Ben, and a 40 at the end for all of them. Okay? So that is hopefully what you've got for your diagram. You then will have even gone one step forward, one step further, and you would have said, well, I've got 5 boxes of sweets. I've got 40 sweets, so I'm going to share those out by 5. 5 into 40 goes 8, so there are 8 sweets in each box. And that is your diagram, okay? You could then maybe you might have said, well, I know that Anita has 8 plus 8, so Anita has 16 sweets, and Ben, 8 plus 8 plus 8, has 24 sweets. So you fill in all the information first before you read the question. And this is a really important thing, particularly for GCSE maths exams, that you fill the information in first and then look at the question. It's not worth reading the question twice at the beginning. I think that's a complete waste of time in maths. It's read a little bit. Anita and Ben share some sweets and the ratio of 2 to 3. Draw your boxes straight away. There are 40 sweets altogether. Put your 40 at the end. So do maths as you go along. Don't read the whole question. that might seem a really strange thing to say, because a lot of teachers will say, read it once, read it again before you write anything. Not in maths. You need to start breaking it down and writing down what you can straight away. That is a really big piece of advice for you when you move into taking your GCSE exams. Okay, so next bit. The question then says, how many sweets does Anita get? We've already got it. The answer is 16. So you've answered the question before you've even read it. Okay, and that's a good feeling when you've got that, because you've done all that hard work and then you get this question at the end that just says, oh, I've done it already. That's how you want to try and prepare for these kind of questions. Okay, so we're going to have a look at a mixture of these questions now. Remember, it will not always go at the end. The 40 will not always go at the end. It might go there, it might go there. So think about where the amount of sweets goes. Right, so you've got 6 questions to have a go at now. Okay, you should not need a calculator for these, so we'll do it without a calculator. Try to make the numbers simple enough. So let's see if you can answer all those. Be accurate, see if you can get all the possible answers. There are some with 3 bars in as well. Okay, that should be a 3-bar one as well. Oops, off the ball today. I made a little chain to say to see. Okay, right, so if you have a go at those please. In fact, that's annoying me. I'm just going to change it now. A to B to C. Right, there we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, so have a go at those 6 questions, please. Any problems, let me know on the chat. And you get questions as straightforward as this on your GCSE as well. Okay, there's normally one that comes up like this every year. So just if you're not in year 10, year 11 yet, you are still doing GCSE work with this kind of work here, and it's quite simple if you know what you're doing, if you label your diagram carefully. Okay, if anyone's done the first one yet, the answer is 16, just to check you got the first one right. Then keep going. Remember, they do change. They're not all the same as the first one. Okay, okay? If your screen keeps getting fuzzy, it's just reload the video, so reload the Facebook page and you should get a better picture. It's a connection from there, and sometimes you get a bad connection. So if you've got a fuzzy screen, just try reloading it and you should get a better picture next time. Just showing the diagrams for 1 and 2 that you should have. I'm not going to answer the question, but as long as you've got that set up, you should be on the right lines. You can see the difference in those questions there, where the 24 goes, where the 12 goes. It's just about reading the question carefully. The questions will be harder to read in proper exam ones as well. There'll be more wordy, more sentences in there. I'll try to make this a bit more straightforward. Okay, right, let's go give you the answers for these ones here. So just to finish the ones up at the top there, it says how many does B get, which will be 16, would be your answer. For this one, if you fill in these, so 12 is 3 boxes, then you've got 4 each box. So B gets 4, 8, 12, 16 as well. So they're both 16 the first 2 questions. So I'm going to put the answer on the board now. So just check you got that there. Altogether meant, so in terms of how much they get each, so you should write each one down. It will be really clear what the question's asking in an exam though. Okay, third one, sixth one, a bit tricky, but it's still the same kind of thing. If you get a good diagram, apart from being more difficult to divide or multiply, but then it might be on a calculator paper anyway, it's the same kind of process. Okay, it does get more difficult than this, so I don't think it's so easy at the moment. All right, we get some harder questions. So, for me, this next one is a really tricky one, where it talks about more parts than the other one. So, let's have a look at this. Okay, so these are the super tricky ones for me. So, Anita and Ben share out some sweets in the ratio of 1 to 3. Ben gets 8 more sweets than Anita. Okay, I want you to have a think about that and see if you can draw a diagram to represent that. So can you draw the bar diagram for that situation there? Okay, so draw the bars and try and label something on there. Label on the information you've got.
Good tip. How do the staff break through 100 walls? How do the staff break through 100 walls?
He uses all of the items.
But that's tough stuff. There must be a bit of magic there, stuff, surely.
Okay, right, so same situation to start with. So we've got Anita and Ben, 1 to 3. Ben gets 8 more sweets than Anita, so it's where to label this one on. And these are the extra sweets that Ben gets. So you want to put your 8 there. Okay, those are the extra sweets. And then we can go 4 and 4 because 2 are worth the 8. Put all your 4s in, and you're at the same situation for the other question. It's just labelling that, and it's a bit tricky to think about it. The 8 goes there, and then you can answer any question you wanted. How many sweets does Anita get? 4. How many does Ben get? 4, 8, 12. How many do they have all together? 4, 8, 12, 16. So you can answer any question once you've got it. It's just getting that diagram in the right place to start with. That 8 in particular, where to put that on. Okay, so there's a diagram there anyway. So let's have a go at these before we look at some of the more worded questions. So 6 questions that I think are very difficult but easy if you get the right diagram. So let's have a look at those, please. Brilliant, one of those people that got that right there, absolutely fantastic. Okay, if anyone needs any help, let me know. I'll just put the first one on again, so the first answer should be this. So A gets 1 part, B gets 3 bars, and we know that B gets 10 more than A. So my 10 is going to go there, which means each box, because you've got 2 boxes more, because B gets 2 boxes more than A, so each one is going to be 5. And then look at the question, how much does A get? Well, A equals 5. Okay, so they're all very similar to that, it's just the wording is slightly different for some of them, different numbers in there. Okay, right, let's just go through these ones here. I'm just going to go through the last one because someone had an issue with the last one, then I'll put the answers on the board. So question 6, okay, so it's the ratio of 1 to 4. So B gets 4 blocks and A gets 1 block, and it says A gets 18 less than B. So the 18 is still going to go in that gap there because that's how many less she gets than B. So then we're going to divide 18 by 3 because there's 3 boxes, 6 in each one. And then the question is, how much do they get each? So A gets 6 and B gets 24. Okay, so questions, answers are there for you. Check those, you've done really well with this. These are really difficult questions, but if you're using this bar method, you can see it's really simple as long as you get the right diagram. It's just about taking the time to draw it. Okay, if you're getting all these right, incredible. Some of you maybe have never done ratio before. If you've been stuck before, hopefully you're seeing you're making some progress here to actually be able to do these questions, which people always say, can't do ratio, too tricky. I don't think it is if you draw a nice diagram. Right, so just going to look at 2 worded questions and you can have a go at the exam questions which are up there. So, this is the kind of thing you get in your exam. Oh, sorry, actually. This is the other way you can use a bar for. So just have a go at this question. See if you can write down what you think the answer is. I would recommend drawing a bar for it as well. If not, write down what you think the answer is. So a cake recipe uses flour to sugar in the ratio of 4 to 3. What fraction of this is sugar? So if anyone thinks they know that, write it down in the chat. Or, if you're not sure straight away, use a bar to help you. So what fraction of this is sugar in that recipe? Okay, right, let's have a look at this one. So, common answer, we got over 3/4 and 3/7. You see the 3 and the 4, you think 3/4, but let's draw it out. So a cake recipe uses flour to sugar. So let's draw it out as one big bar this time. So flour gets 1, 2, 3, 4, and sugar gets 3. Okay, so let's show you that on the actual thing here. So there we go. So that's what's happening here. 4 for flour, 3 for sugar. Now if I gave you that diagram and said what fraction is sugar, you'd hopefully get it right rather than writing 3 out of 4. Because there are 3 sugars, out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes in total. So it's 3/7. Okay? So your answer would be for that one 3/7, not 3/4. I wanted to put that one in there because I see so many times people writing down 3/4 for ones like that. If you draw the diagram first, you hopefully won't make that mistake. Okay, so back to the kind of regular questions here. Have a go at that one. Read the words carefully and see what you do with that one. If you've just started ratio as well, this is your first lesson on it, the first set of questions on ratio, if you can do those, that is fantastic. The second set really are the more advanced ones. If you've been doing ratio for a while, if you're looking at taking your GCSE maybe this year or next year, then that's for you. Okay, so don't worry if you couldn't do the last set. This one, hopefully, if you can manage this one, then you're doing absolutely fantastically. So think about what we're doing for this question here. Draw your 3 bars down and then go from there. So it's red, green and blue, isn't it? Okay, so if you're on this one, set them out there, red, green and blue counters. and then we know all together there are 120. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 boxes to share them out between. So 120 divided by 10 is 12 in each box. Okay, so 12 in each box there, and then we can work out the question. It says, work at the total number of red counters, 12, 24, 36, so your answer is 36. Okay, so that's a very common ratio question, and you'll get that pretty much every year in GCSE, one like that. Right, so well done for that one. Right, last question we're going to have a look at before we're going to finish the lesson. Okay, it's one of the more difficult style ones. Okay, I've tried to make this more confusing with the wording of the question. So have a think about this one now. There's a lot to think about in this question about how to draw your diagram. So a bag contains green and blue counters in the ratio of 3 to 7. Well, that bit's easy. At least you can set that out to start with. 24 blue counters are removed from the bag. The bag now has an equal number of blue and green counters. So it's got the same green and the same blue left in the bag now. How many green counters were there in the bag to start with? So, worded differently, very differently to the other ones, but it's still the same type of ratio question if you can get a good diagram for it. So have a think about how to do that one, please, and then we'll go through that one on the board to finish with. Okay, some answers coming in. I don't actually know the answer to this question, so some answers coming in already. We're going to have to wait and see. There's a few different ones. What are we on? We're green and blue this time. Okay, a few different answers coming in. Okay, so let's have a look at it. So we've got, there's your ratio to start with. 24 blue counters are removed from the bag. The bag now has an equal number of blue and green counters. Okay, so we've had an equal number. The ratio is going to be equal. So it'll go to this. So once those counters have been removed, once these have been removed, they've got the same amount. So this is how many were taken out, which is 24. So 24 counters removed from the bag because that will make it equal. So the same green, the same blue. So if these are taken out, that's going to give you 24 divided by 4, which is 6 in each box, and you're back to your easy bit again. And then green, how many counters are in the green bag? what did it say? How many counters are in the bag to start with? Okay, so think how many green counters, so 6, 6 and 6. So it is 18 counters there. So 18 is the correct answer for that tough ratio question. These are the kind of ones they put in GCSE now because they're trying to really make you problem solve and use ratio like this. Right, it's pretty much the end of it now. I've got some exam questions which I've attached to a previous post. I'll attach those to the comments in this as well, which I can do once we stop recording, and I'll put the answers up later today. So if you want some more practice at this, please have a go at the GCSE exam questions. Those questions do start quite easy, but they do get more difficult than this. Different kind of ways of thinking about ratio, but still using the bar method. So please have a go at this. Ratio comes up a lot in GCSE now. Everything with this bar method stuff is a huge proportion of the whole paper. Fractions, ratio, percentages, proportion. So if you get used to this, it will give you a huge advantage in the marks you're going to get in your GCSE. Okay, so as always, stay safe and hopefully the schools will be open soon. I will be here on Thursday for an algebra lesson and next week as well. And this Friday as well, if any of you are interested in the Key Stage 2 lesson, we are looking at multiplying decimals by 10, 100, 1,000. But the really important thing to make sure you can do. Okay, right, so I'll post those exam questions up now. They're on the site already. Some of you might have printed them. But really well done today. Tough topic. Okay, fantastic work. In terms of someone asking, are the later ones more year 11? All of these questions could come up in GCSE. Obviously, there's easier ones and harder ones, but all of